This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is a friend and mentor and one of the single most successful contrarian speculators in the resource space, none other than Mr. Jeff Phillips. Jeff, how are you today?
Doing well, Gerardo. Thanks for having me.
Well, look, it's an easy time to say we're doing well. Gold's at 4,200, silver's above 58, copper just made brand new all-time highs, lithium is rebounding, and uranium seems to have a whole heck of a lot of structural supply-demand things going for it. Have you ever seen a bull market like this one in the metal space? I'm only 16 years in. You've been around a little bit longer than that. How's this one compared to other bull markets?
It's pretty good so far. I mean, I've been around now about 30 years in this space, and I think I've only seen really two great bull markets. And this is shaping up to probably better than those two markets, which were pretty fantastic. So, again, it's not going to be without some bumps in the road, but I think structurally this bull market has a long way to go, especially for
We
the stocks.
Yeah, and let's get right to that, right? We've been really fortunate, Jeff, with say, your help and guidance and others to be able to find and vet deals from earlier stage companies that have really experienced management teams where a lot of the exploration companies, especially the early ones, right, aren't getting the attention that say a producer or a developer is getting. And we've been fortunate enough to do well for ourselves, subscribers, family members, and friends. What are you seeing out there? Is there anything recently that you've helped finance or structure or consult for, because you often consult for companies that you like, given where we're at in this bull cycle?
Yeah, I think, first off, when I'm people and structure, so we won't go into that. But the most important thing in for me is the people. Have they done something before? What have they done before? What's their track record? And then share structure is not just your shares outstanding. It's who the other shareholders are. It's does management have a significant stake in the company, fully reporting? Do the other shareholders that are in that they've sold shares to in the past, are these people long-term shareholders that are looking to develop an asset, or are they short-term players? Most of these companies have very short-term players as shareholders, which makes it hard to develop an asset. Um, we're obviously in a better market. I've been lucky enough to have a great run, without a bull market for the last 5, 6 years. I've had some really big winners, but along the lines with people and structure, it usually works out, whether it's a bull market or a bear market. It just or a flat market. It
Sure.
takes time. If you're developing a real asset, you're going to do well, and that's what I'm always trying to do. So right now I'm looking at companies, and I've financed a number of companies this year, and like you said, I end up consulting for those companies, and really it's people call it strategic advisor, or activist investor. I call it parental supervision. These are small companies. And you want to make sure that they're spending the money properly. And when they go to bring in new shareholders, those shareholders are like-minded to your group of shareholders that, again, otherwise it can be a vicious treadmill, the junior resource game, and stock coming out and constantly raising money. And what you really want to see is your company after you put money in. I want to write checks at higher prices.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
like doing that. But I want the company to develop, and I want it to have an opportunity to do that. It lowers the cost of capital for the company to continue improving their assets. So yeah, I financed a bunch of companies this year, and I do usually have a basket of a dozen stocks that I'm probably a large shareholder in, and I also consult for. With a years time frame, years and years sometimes.
Yep.
But yeah, so this year I've done I've done a couple of direct drill type plays where I'm financing the drilling. I've also, I think I've done three prospect generators, or two of them that I financed. One I've been along. I like the prospect generator model. So but it's I'm always looking for people and structure. So there's still things out there that interest me.
We tend to look at a lot of the same deals, Jeff, and oftentimes we're writing checks, alongside each other. There's three that recently that have really stuck out to me because of the way those deals were structured, and that was Corora Copper, Headwater Gold, and a new company called, it's a capital pool corp company, V10 Capital.
Yep.
And all three of those, and I believe it was with your guidance or your parental supervision per se, as you called it, had lockup clauses where the shares were either voluntarily escrowed for 12 months or escrowed for 6 months, where 50% of the shares would be released and then 50% would be released 6 months after that. What's the thinking with that kind of approach? Clearly, it shows, from a check writer's perspective, a commitment to the company to give them the time and the space to get the work done. But when you ask or negotiate that and you're advising companies on that kind of structure, what's the motivation there?
Oh, I guess there's twofold motivation there. One is that, like I said, when I write a check, even when I've done several deals that didn't have there's a 4 month lockup. Usually, I mean, again, I don't do life financing because I think that's ridiculous, and you see these happening all the time. But usually there's a 4 month lockup, and like I said, I'm usually holding my stock for years in these companies, helping them to develop, going through cycles and developing an asset. So part of the strategy is that unless myself and other people are sidecarring in or coming in because they know that I'm going to provide parental supervision, I want to make sure if they're bringing other shareholders in, or friends and family, or their broker or whoever,
Yeah,
that these people aren't going to be selling stock in 4 months.
sure.
So I'm going to hold my stock anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference. So like you brought up Concora Copper, and all three of those deals are a little bit different. Concora Copper was a company that I looked at. I was familiar with the prospect generator model. I ended up talking to the company. A lot of recommendations on Sam Spring from people I really respect in the business, saying what a class act he is, and a
Yeah,
go-getter and a hard worker. And
yep,
so that was the most important thing. And then his technical team are guys who've discovered billion-dollar assets. They were all with Newcrest. A lot of the assets in Concora are stuff that they wanted Newcrest before it got bought by Newmont, and before they made other discoveries like Cadia, and I
yeah,
can't remember the other ones that they never got properly drilled. So Concora was an interesting company. It didn't have a great structure. It had started off as not a prospect generator, but really drilling their own properties, and that takes a lot of money, and
yeah,
the structure and the timing and the markets. And so I came in and I looked at it, and they switched to a prospect generator model. They had a huge joint venture with Anglo on two large projects, and several other joint ventures with other companies. I think a total of 5 joint ventures that
yeah,
they're paying for the exploration expenses. And I looked at it, I restructured it. I, talked to, like you said, it's all the people and people you talk to. And one of my mentors, and I've had many mentors and people I've learned from, is Rick Rule. I showed the deal to Rick, and Rick liked the deal, obviously. And so him and I were the lead orders in that. And we put a year hold on the stock just because there were other people coming in, and Rick's in the same mindset I am.
yeah,
Hey, look, we want to see this develop, and let's make sure everybody's in the same page we are. So that's why we did that. Concora is now restructured with roughly 42 million shares out. We'll probably see 4 or 5 projects drilled next year, and with guys that have made big discoveries before. And they're looking for, 10, 20, $30 billion copper porphyry assets.
yeah,
That makes a difference if you find one. It's not guaranteed, but
sure.
they've got the structure, they've got the people, they've got the money.
Yeah,
So, I'm very optimistic. And, recently there was a shareholder who had to sell some shares because of a divorce, a large shareholder, and it knocked the stock back. But again, I don't really care. I'm patient, and I'm looking for a $1 billion asset. That's what I want. So Concora is a company I restructured. You brought up Headwater, which
yeah,
happens to be another prospect generator run by Caleb Stroop. Caleb's a younger guy. Younger than me. So he's in his early 40s. I've been a shareholder of, I came in, a couple gentlemen I respect, Joe Mazumdar and Brent Cook. Brent used to write a letter called Exploration Insights. Joe
yeah,
Mazumdar now writes that letter. Very good geologist, both of them. Great letter. You should look at that if you're really interested in the junior resource
yep,
space. But they had talked to me about Headwater, and this is 3 years ago, and Headwater had just done a joint venture with it was with Oceana, I think, at the time, but it turned into Newmont. And it was a really great joint venture. I mean, 100 million, not guaranteed, but the commitment to earn all the way in was not your typical JV. It was,
yeah,
$100 million to earn all the way in. Doesn't mean they'll go all the way through with that, but they have continued. So I've been a shareholder for 3 years. Earlier this year, again, Caleb has kept a very tight structure. He's always followed the prospect generator model. I really got to know him and said, "Hey, I'd like to buy more shares." I bought a bunch of shares in the market. I then ended up, he didn't necessarily need money because he's running
yeah,
a prospect general model, but
mm,
he could use that to go get some other projects. So I said, "Hey, um, you know, I would like to finance it." And again, I took that to Rick, and Rick and I wrote the checks. And the only other participant really was Centerra Gold, the producer, who owns 10%, 9% of the company now, and they had the right to top up. So and since then, Caleb's proven that he knows how to execute probably as well
Yeah.
as anybody, if not the best, in that prospect generator model. He basically has, cut another deal with a major on two other projects. I suspect they'll cut more deals here in the future. I suspect we'll see there's two projects being drilled right now. I suspect we'll see those continue to be drilled. Newmont's just elected to go to the second phase of the joint venture on those
Right.
projects. So they spent $10 million, which was non-dilutive to Headwater because it goes into the project. And they've
Sure.
elected to go to the next phase. And I can't remember the amount. I think it's 30 million, over the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So they're drilling away now. But again, you're looking to make a discovery, but Caleb's a good person. The whole team there, the board of directors owns 30% of the company, fully reporting. They're not benefiting if they don't find a major deposit.
Right.
And they've got two majors now, and I suspect we'll see more in the future in this bull market, joint venture and projects from them. Good, good share structure, good people, executing flawlessly. So Headwater's a company I really like. And then what was the third company you brought up that?
I mean, it's not much to talk about. It's a Capital Pool Corp company, right? V10 Capital, which we just wrote a check for, and also it has a lockup clause there, 6 months and 12 months. They have a large land package out of Australia and a joint venture with Newmont. But I know, the team is looking to bring in, a board of directors that we know and trust, and some other assets. So V10 Capital Pool Corp is a
Yeah,
new stock that's halted as we speak. It doesn't even trade yet. So
yeah, it's not trading. It's they're doing their qualifying transaction, like you said. I believe you wrote a check. I wrote a check,
mhm.
but that that's an easy one to explain. Blair Way, who is
Yeah,
behind that, and I can't think of the Australian geologist who owns the big firm in Australia, but a class act. They were involved. Blair was Patriot Battery Metals that you and I wrote checks for. And I was one of the largest shareholders. At that time at
yeah.
16 cents. That stock went to $16 with a major lithium discovery and what's going to truly be a great mine someday. So, when Blair called and said, I'm sure it was the same thing for you when he called and
Oh
said,
yeah.
I'm putting this Australian asset into this vehicle and I plan on adding other assets.
Take
I've
my
got a lot
money.
of time. Yeah, I've got a lot of time for Blair, I mean,
Absolutely.
but again, like you said, it's early stages. They've got a real good asset. They've got part of that land package is joint venture with Newmont. I think you said that. And
Correct.
but I don't think they'll be a prospect generator. I think they'll be doing some drilling and
Yeah.
more like a hybrid. Maybe they'll have a couple joint ventures, but they've got to add projects but very well connected people. Again, these are back to people, you
People.
know, and the share structure is the same thing. When it does go public here in January or so, the stock's not the typical 4 month. It's locked up longer, and again, the management's going to own a big chunk of that, and they're going to make something happen. But these things aren't overnight successes. Everybody in this bull market, it's like, I've had companies I've worked with, and all of a sudden they've done well. They're higher than I financed them, but all of a sudden they're doing really well because we're in a better market. So yeah, V10's an interesting company, but yeah, I don't think it'll fit the prospect generator model. And another company I really like that I'll end it with this, I guess, is again, it's a patience game, but is Almadex Minerals,
Yeah.
which is kind of a hybrid prospect generator. I mean,
Sure.
the reason it's in existence, it was a prospect generator over 25 years. Morgan Pollican has made 3 multi-million ounce discoveries in prior companies and had spin outs. And Almadex is the company that now exists. It's got, I can't even count. It's got 15 royalties from Canada to
Yeah.
Mexico, United States. It's got, 15 other projects, probably, or a dozen that came from the other companies as they made discoveries and spun it out. All those
Yeah.
projects are in it. It's got, Morgan's got a theory on these lithocaps here in the States that what led into his multi-million ounce discoveries in Mexico, that these have been overlooked, a certain type of clay in these lithocaps. I think he's up to a dozen that I think I know about.
Yeah.
My guess is he's probably staked a few more.
Yeah.
It goes on and on with Almadex. They're sitting on $20 million in cash and gold. So they're not raising money anytime soon. Again, if you want to own stock, which I like to see, you've got to buy it in the market. And that's what I've had to do. They own 6 of their own drill rigs. They've got, they just finished a drill program for another company where they're making money running one of their rigs.
Yeah.
Another rig is just finished at Paradise, one of their lithocaps. They announced that they've moved it over to Arizona to the New Hope project, which is a lithocap that Morgan recently staked.
Right.
Again, Morgan makes discoveries. So, where's the stock trading at? I don't know, 46, 48 cents
Hmm.
Canadian.
Sure.
with, roughly 32, 34, 35 cents in cash.
Yeah.
And I've got a guy who's made multi-million ounce discoveries. He's passionate. I like his theory on these litho caps. Plus, I have all the royalties and everything else, and I'm in a bull market.
Yeah.
I think Almadex offers a lot of speculative value. These are all speculations. But again, so your listeners know, the resource market's very difficult. And if you're just listening to this and you haven't ever been in the resource market, the junior resource market is not where you put your money. It's not investing, it's educated speculating. So again, if you understand the junior market, you need to get quality advice from a broker or a newsletter writer like yourself. Again, I finance companies and I just try to keep them on track, basically try to make sure that my money doesn't get wasted.
Yeah.
But, again, you need to get quality advice, and I consult for these companies. So again, and I'm a very large shareholder. So do your due diligence. If you're not used to the junior resource market, it's not where you start. If again, I'll try to wrap it up here, Gerardo, but if you like gold or you like uranium, and I like both of those, I love copper.
Yeah.
You don't buy it. Your first purchase in the resource market isn't some junior. It's going to be a Cameco for uranium, or Agnico Eagle, or a Newmont for gold, or, and these are still speculations because, they've done well. And to end it, you said something, but the bull market's begun. We see it in the metals prices,
Yeah.
and we see it in the big producers. They've all
Yeah.
doubled or tripled. They're making tremendous cash flow right now. They're going to have to start picking up assets, which is what we want to see,
Right.
to fill their pipeline. But at the end of the bull market, which will last a year or two, these smaller companies tend to move further and faster than any, they
Yeah.
play catch up to everything else. So I really think we're in the early innings. Again, we may have some speed bumps, but the junior market, the developers, the explorers, the quality ones, like, again, the reason we end up in some of the same deals, Gerardo, is because we're looking for the same stuff, people and share structure. And when you get to that, you eliminate 90%
Yeah.
of the other companies. So it's a smaller pool that you're looking at. So anyway, just be careful. But if if you are in the resource market and you're looking for, diversification, look into Concora, look into Headwater, two great prospect generators. Take a look at Almadex. It's basically trading barely ahead of its cash position, and V10 will follow next year. I think that team will execute.
Yeah. No, exciting times. Generous as always. Appreciate the feedback, the advice, and the names and the tickers there. Thank you so much, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Gerardo.
All right, let's do it again soon. Hey everybody, Gerardo Del Real here. If you're enjoying the content that you just saw, you can let us know in 3 simple steps. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please share across your network and on social media. Take care, everybody.